For this video, I'm going to assume that you've already watched the introduction to major scales and the 2-octave one, because that will explain the fingering and the key signatures and how all those work. This new video is to show you how the minors work. So in music, especially in Western music, we have these kind of two basic ideas. You have a major sound and a minor sound. And if we keep it super simple, we say major sounds happier or brighter, like a color, it's like bright colors. And then minor sounds a bit darker or sadder, like darker blues or grays, or puts us in a lower kind of mood. So we think of major as being up and then minor as being down. The actual two words, major and minor, have actually got other meanings as well, like a major accident. If you have a major accident, your head falls off, or you have a car crash or something big, it's dramatic, it's huge. If you have a minor accident, you might get a graze on your hand, just something little. So those two words, major and minor, actually have the same meaning in music and intervals. And intervals is a topic for another video, which I might do later. But for now, I want you to listen to the sounds. If I go from a C and an E, standard old sound, that's the first note and the third note of C scale. Sounds happier, sounds brighter. You can imagine these guys with smiles on their faces. It puts us in more of an up sort of feel. That is a bigger third. 1, 2, 3. It's bigger than this one. If I flatten this, 1, 2, 3, it is still a third. But it's a sadder sounding third. So you can imagine these guys with little frowns on their faces. Technically, the only difference between a major scale and a minor scale are the intervals. Major, minor. Or this one, major, minor. Major, that's a weird jagged major sound, minor. And of course there are other ones, but that's for another topic. So with the minor scales, the only difference between this is traditional Western major and minor tonalities. There are plenty of other kinds of minor scales and major scales, but for now we're just talking about your good old standard 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 different minor scales. And you've got the 12 major scales. The main difference between the two is the tone and semitone pattern I was telling you about last time. So we had the tone with a note in between, tone with a note in between, semitone. Major scales, the thing that makes it sound happier and major is this particular tone and semitone pattern. And when we play things in these kind of sounds, that's just using the notes from C scale, and I ended with a C kind of sound, a C kind of chord, and it makes us feel brighter and happier. If I change the tone and semitone patterns in that same C major scale, we have a tone from here to here. If I make the next interval smaller, that's a semitone. Suddenly our pattern, our scale pattern, becomes tone, semitone. I'm going to skip over that and go to here. That's a tone because there's a note in between. Tone. I'm going to flatten this one, make it sound darker. I'm going to make this one into a tone as well. And the top one is another tone. So the tone and semitone patterns just change to make the mood sound very different. So if I play something using those notes instead, it sounds darker and our little ladybugs are sad. All I did was change the tone and semitone pattern. So jumping back to our good old cycle of fifths, I'm going to start from the top of the cycle again, purely because the first key signature of that cycle is 0. No sharps, no flats. And what I want you to understand is that every major scale has a twin. Twins. We have little twins. One is major and brighter and happier. The other one is lower and darker and sounds a bit more miserable. The notes are exactly the same. The letter names, the key signatures are exactly the same. So they go in pairs. And in music, we call these relatives. So you have a relative major and a relative minor, and they share that same key signature. So if we have C major and I'm going to assume that you know your fingering from the first video. I won't spend as much time explaining that this time around. If you have C major, we had all white notes, no sharps, no flats. The wonderful, easy way to work out who the relative minor is to think of a miner like a gold miner who works under the ground. And if you go down exactly one note at a time, including blacks, under the ground. Sounds like a game show where you've just lost. You just lost. It's sad. Every major scale starts on whatever that note is, and then semitone, semitone, semitone down. 3 semitones down gives you the relative minor. So the cool thing is, you just have to remember what the major is, what the sharps, what the flats were, and start on the new note. So C major is related to under the ground A minor. And I'm going to play exactly the same notes, but start on A and listen to the difference. I played exactly the same thing. All white, all white. But it has a totally different mood because suddenly that pattern, tone, semitone, tone, tone, semitone in a different spot, tone and tone. So the tone and semitone pattern has changed. This is where piano players can sometimes get confused because you think, well, I'm playing the same notes, but the actual intervals between them, the gaps between them are different. So A minor, this is, if we play exactly the same as C, this is called a natural minor. It's had no changes. It's naturally the same as the relative major. So I'll show you with the right hand, and I'm just going to do 1 octave, and then I'm going to stretch it to 2. And again, I'm going to assume that you understand the fingering from the previous video. I'll help you with the trickier fingering in a minute. So A natural minor, 1 octave. And 2 octaves. Left hand, same deal. And 2 octaves. All white notes, nothing complicated. But your thumb's going to land on A this time. So the A is your new home. The really cool sounding scales are called harmonic minors. So harmonic minor comes from the word harmony. So a harmony is when you have chords. All these different chords, when we take notes from that scale and put them in different orders. When we play the particular harmony, and again, this is Western music, different countries and different nationalities have different kind of scales. But in Western music, when we play harmony, our ears are very used to hearing a semitone at the end of the scale because it makes it feel like the end. Doesn't matter whether it's a major one or a minor one. We hear this all the time. There's a semitone at the end. There's our little V end. It sounds like it's close to home. So what people do for harmonic minor, so it matches with the harmony, is we take our minor scale. It still has no sharps in the key signature, no sharps, no flats, but we count up 7 notes again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 gets raised up and it comes closer to home. And it gives us this really cool snaky sound. And the reason it sounds Arabic is because that kind of Egyptian Arabic kind of sound is part of their traditional scales as well. So that's why we think of, you know, snake charmers in India or different cultures. That cool sound is made up of a semitone there, a semitone there. That is a whopping big step. It is an F to a G sharp. So even though it looks like a skip, it looks really, really far apart. It's a tone plus a semitone. So we call it a tone and a half, or tone plus a semitone. So now I'm going to do the same thing, harmonic minor, 1 octave up, and then I'll do 2 octaves as well. So listen to the difference in the sound. lifted that 2 octaves. There you go, you're lucky. I'm going to do the same with your left hand. I'm going to give you a third type of minor scale. There are heaps more than this, but these are the 3 standard ones that get practiced heaps. And like I said in the introduction video, all of these things help you understand when something's in the key of A minor, or if you're trying to just make your fingers fit and get them faster. They're great exercises, and all this gymnastics, all these new kind of weird ways of moving your fingers is just helping your brain to become a better musician, helping your fingers to know where to move. The cool third kind of minor scale is called a melodic minor. So with melodic minor, we have 2 special ones that get raised up. We count to the 6th note. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The 6th and the 7th get lifted up. It's like they've got balloons on them and they get lifted up higher. It makes it sound major at the end. If you remember A major, we had that brighter sound at the start. And this was the same as A major. We had 3 sharps in the key of A major. If we're playing melodic minor, we have no sharps in the key signature. All these extra guys, the extra ones are put as accidentals. They're not written in the key signature. So composers will write these in the music whenever they want them, if they want them. They're just extras. Accidentals is a weird word because it sounds like an accident, like an oops, but it just means it's not in the key signature. It's not written at the start of the piece to say, hey, this is the key, this is the obstacle course, this is the family. So let me show you, got a melodic minor going up. And it's a beautiful melody because on the way up, we raise them, the balloons lift them up. On the way down, we flatten them and it turns into natural minor. Coming down, it's exactly the same as C. So let me show you that again, and I'll do 2 octaves up this time. Raise up, and up, and coming down. So a cool way to practice these top things here, and the fingering will change depending on what scale you're doing, but it's really fun to turn these around. It feels like you're doing a little figure 8 in the air. Left hand, same deal. We raise the 6th and the 7th note coming up. So there are 3 types of minor scales. We have natural, harmonic, and melodic. And there are heaps of other kinds of scales that you have too, but let's just focus on those 3.